So it's my pleasure to bring up stage the CEO of GIADEC, Reindorf Twumasi Ankrah. Put your hands together for Reindorf. Oh, come on, guys. Reindorf, you're welcome. Please have a seat. And this is just half an hour conversation to understand the vision of GIADEC and to get a clear sense of what an integrated aluminum industry means and why we're excited about the prospects of that. So I'm very excited about this. So Reindorf, let's talk a bit about GIADEC, all right? So Ghana Integrated Aluminum Development Corporation, is that what it is? Is it a private company? Is it a public company? Just give me GIADEC 101 before I even ask any question.
Bernard, GIADEC is a public corporation.
Okay.
Set up by the government with a commercial orientation. That is to lead the Ghana Integrated Aluminum Industry Initiative. When I talk about aluminum industry initiative, basically we are talking about adding value to our bauxite so that we have a finished product. For the past years, we have been practicing the system where we export the raw material, which is the bauxite, and then import the finished material, which is the aluminum. The purpose of GIADEC is to ensure that Ghana would become an exporter of the finished product as well, and not just the raw material. So essentially, that is the whole aim of GIADEC in a nutshell.
So let me understand this. We mine bauxite, and then we export it raw. And then if we want to produce aluminum in our smelter, we import, what do we import?
So you rightly stated that the journey towards having an integrated aluminum industry was championed by our first president under his Volta Project vision. The Volta Project vision was to give Ghana a refinery and a smelter. And based on this initiative, he was able to broker a deal between Kaiser Aluminium and Reynolds Metals for the construction of the aluminum, that's VALCO, what we have today as VALCO. What was supposed to be built to have the value chain completed is the refinery. But for some reason, and due to geopolitical politics of the time, it was sited in Jamaica. So we've had a situation where we have the smelter, which is supposed to add value to the alumina, which is the intermediary product, processed bauxite. We import that from Jamaica to feed our our VALCO, and then we export it because we don't even have enough to meet our local demands. So what we are about to do is essentially to get a refinery so that the only missing will, and then we can now supervise a proper synergy or integration as we envision it to be.
Beautiful. So you want to have an integrated aluminum industry.
Exactly.
I guess the first question is, do you have enough proven reserves of bauxite to even begin this conversation?
So, Bernard, as we speak, the data shows that Ghana has an estimated reserve of about 920 million metric tons of bauxite. Averagely, we'll say 1 billion. Now, based on the experts and then the conversation so far had, if Ghana is able to have a 1 million metric ton generation capacity refinery, we should be mining at least 5 million metric tons of bauxite every year. And if you strike the average and we even decide to dedicate 500 million metric tons of bauxite just to feed the refinery so that we are able to feed VALCO, we are talking about a minimum 100 years of operation. So clearly, to answer your question, we have the reserves that is needed to have and drive that agenda.
Is there a factor you can give me? So if I have 10 pieces of bauxite, how much of that do I need to produce 1 piece of alumina? And then how much do I need to produce 1 piece of refined aluminum product? What is it looking like so that we can understand the prospects for the value chain?
I'll try my best to answer that question, but Dr. Kobe, who is the expert in GIADEC, has all the information on that, but I'll answer. Bernard, from the data we have so far, the indication is that to produce 1 million metric tons of alumina per annum, you will need a minimum of 3 million metric tons of bauxite.
Okay.
And To be able to produce or generate 1 million metric tons of aluminium, you need a minimum of about 2.5 million metric tons of alumina.
Okay.
So that is a breakdown, tentatively speaking. So that is how it goes. So it's about 2:1. When you put in 2, you get 1. So when you put 2 million bauxite, you are likely to get 1. When you put 2 million alumina, you are likely to get 1 million aluminium.
Good.
So that is how it operates.
So you've answered the question around the resources we have. What is global demand saying about aluminium and where it is going? Is this something we should be excited to enter now? So what I'm asking is global demand projected to rise? Is it going to flatten? Is it going to come down? So that we don't spend all our time doing this and they've changed the thing. Now they are doing something else and they've just wasted our money.
But just to answer, you notice that even the vehicles being manufactured these days are mostly from aluminium.
Is it?
Yes, some of them are made out of aluminium.
Okay.
In fact, so that should tell you that there is a global march towards higher demand for aluminium products. And the studies show that by 2030, the demand will surge by a minimum 40%. And it's important that at this time we have GIADEC to drive that agenda to ensure that at least by 2030, we should have in place a refinery that is feeding our smelter, which is VALCO, to be able to make Ghana a lead exporter of aluminium, so we can tap into that global surge.
But power is very critical for all the things you've mentioned, whether it's the mining or the refinery or the smelter. Indeed, the whole of Akosombo, the power at the time was so much, we needed to use it for the smelter. A lot of people say that the cost per kilowatt hour of power in Ghana is too high for any serious level industrialization. That for countries that have truly industrialized in our generation, whether it's even Vietnam and Thailand and co, the cost of power is much cheaper. In Ghana, generally, we charge productive use of power more than domestic use. Do you understand? So if I'm using power to watch television, I pay less than the person using power to do something more productive. So what is your view around availability, accessibility, and affordability of power to make this your big GIADEC thing a viable project?
So Bernard, just to answer that, I'll first and foremost refer to your opening statement. As part of the VALCO project, government at the time, led by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, constructed the Akosombo Dam. So the sole aim of the dam was to feed the VALCO. It was part of the aluminum industry project. Now, we all depend heavily on the Akosombo Dam for electricity in our homes. So clearly, we don't have enough power to even feed VALCO, not to talk less of a refinery. So as part of our investor engagement at GIADEC, what we do is we call on our potential investors to also give us an alternative ways of providing power solution. Okay. We have engaged in conversations where some of the prospective investors have told us that they want to generate alternative means of power, such as gas. In fact, rely on nuclear as a source of power so they can have stable supply of power. Because to have the alumina, which is born from the bauxite, you need constant supply of heat. And therefore, it would be wrong, or it would be a wrong projection to rely entirely on Ghana's domestic power supply. So as part of our investor engagement, we have a component which requires the investors to tell us how they intend to generate power. Aside that, GIADEC is also leading an initiative to ensure that at least government is able to, for whatever power it is ready to make available to the investor, give a certain concessionary rate which is lower than the average market price. So these are the things we are looking at doing. And also as part of this, pipelines, gas pipelines were laid all the way from Atuabo to even connect with the mining concessions in Yinehini to make it easier for whoever invests in there to have access to power. So these are some of the initiatives that have been put in place to make sure that investors have the necessary facility to support their investments.
All right. Now, please do not see my questions as skepticism. I'm basically putting them within the context of the reality of today. This week, people met PURC. and they were asking for power. They were asking for more tariffs. Electricity company wants 270%, Ghana Water 280%, Netco 173. So I'm asking the power affordability question within the context of the cost of power. Now, the other thing that you need, because again, to develop an integrated aluminium industry, a lot of things are outside your purview. So, for example, you need railways, rail lines. Bauxite has to be transported, and I don't think you're going to transport that on a road. You probably need so you need a couple of things. You need a rail, you need a good port, and there's a connection. Ghana's railway industry, as far as I know, is not that well developed. The Western Enclave doesn't seem to be doing much. The Teman Pakadan, I don't know if there's any coach on it yet. So, are you not jumping the gun with this talk about GIADEC when we haven't dealt with the basics like rail infrastructure, efficient ports, and the rest of it?
So, Bernard, thank you for that question. It's very instructive, and it gives us the opportunity to delve into what really we need as a support for this agenda. Now, rail is very key to whatever it is we want to do, because we do not have the roads sustain haulage of bauxite beyond a certain quantity. And if you are not able to haul bauxite beyond a certain quantity, the revenue that you generate is nothing to write home about. So, as part of our engagement, we have now decided to incorporate rail as part of the proposals we make, because what we seek to do at GIADEC is to leverage the bauxite. We want to shift from the system where we previously would give the concession to an investor, go sit, fold our arms, and then wait for royalty payments and then taxes. We want to be a part and parcel of whatever is being done. So what we do now is we have the conversations with the investors, and we tell them that these are the supporting infrastructure that we need to realize the vision of having a fully integrated aluminum industry. Let us know how you intend to tap in to help us realize that goal. Luckily for us, some of the investors have come back with proposals on how and which areas of this infrastructure they want to assist with developing. And we are looking at furthering the conversation to see if we can have some fruitful outcomes from there. But yes, I agree that we need these structures to make it a very viable venture. And because governments ordinarily do not have money sitting down to say, we are taking minimum $1.5 billion to construct the Western Rail Line, which is about 250 kilometers stretch, and will cost the minimum of $1.5 billion. Governments, past and in future, do not have that allocation. So we have to leverage on the bauxite we have to get the investors to develop that railway network for us, and that is exactly what we are doing. So we are leveraging the bauxite to get the infrastructure that is needed.
When you look at the geographical spread of our bauxite deposits, which parts of the country stand to benefit the most from this? Is it the Western Enclave? Because I've also told there's some bauxite in the Achim areas, correct? Or it's mostly in the Western region?
So we have our bauxite is scattered across, I think, mainly 3 regions. Ashanti, Western, and Eastern. And then the Eastern, there are about 2 reserves. One that is very much unknown, but where we do the paragliding for the coal, that whole hill has a lot of bauxite reserves. And then we also have the Atiwa forest one, which obviously had its own issues when attempts were made to go into it. So these are the reserves scattered across 3 main regions. But the substantial reserve is within the Ashanti region. That's the Inahini, Pasaso, Chichire Enclave. So that's where we have a chunk of the reserve. About, if not my mathematics will not fail me, about 700 million metric tons of that reserve in the Ashanti region.
You know, the whole of yesterday and today we've been talking about community ownership. Are the people in the communities where the bauxite is, are they happy and willing and expectant for investments to come? Have you started engaging them on how mining at that level will change their lives positively and possibly negatively too? Because a lot of the challenges we see with gold mining in communities possibly results from lack of proper prior engagement and community involvement. So whilst you have some great ideas, and I think you've done your numbers right, the problem in Ghana mostly is the communities and their understanding and involvement. So is that within the GIADEC mandate as well?
Yes, by our law, we are supposed to ensure local participation and local content. And in fact, even in the absence of the law, we have to obtain the social license to operate. And that requires you building a very good relationship with the communities which houses these reserves. At GIADEC, we have a system in place where we have liaison officers who are picked from these very communities. And these officers are the representatives of GIADEC on the field, and then they take the sentiments of the community, make it known to GIADEC, and then take GIADEC's sentiments and make it known to the community. So they lead us into the community. And these are persons selected from These are prominent persons selected from the community to make sure that whatever vision or whatever investments that we are bringing in there, they relay to the people, get their buy-in, and report to us so we can also fashion a plan and then enter the community with that plan. So as part of our vision, the community is not going to be left out in whatever development that will take place. In fact, one of the things we are looking at is to give priority to the community members in terms of any in terms of employment, training, workshops, and even the mining or any activity that takes place within the concession areas. So that is the vision we have for the communities to ensure that we continually have their support.
Wonderful. We are talking to the CEO of GIADEC, Reindorf Twumasi Ankrah, and we're discussing Ghana's integrated aluminium ambition. This is supposed to be a fireside conversation. But you're not giving me heat. Put your hands together for Twumasi. He's doing really well. And I have just 10 minutes to go. In relation to the question that the first questioner asked and the last questioner asked, it's always a question of where are the investment opportunities? So I want you to do two things. Give me a sense of where investment opportunities are from contract, supply, all the way through the downstream. And then tell me which ones you think are immediate and most pressing. So it's a two-in-one question, right? So walk us through, because maybe people have money listening. I see some money people around, right? Where are the opportunities for investment, and which ones are more immediate and which ones are more long-term?
So, Bernard, this is a two-in-one question.
Yes.
And a very difficult one, and not difficult to answer, but difficult because it's uneasy to determine which one is immediate, because the mandate we have is said that all must at least progress simultaneously.
Okay.
Because the mining, the refinery, the smelter must work together. So you must have the bauxite to feed the refinery, the refinery to feed the smelter. As I indicated earlier, we have the smelter, which needs to go through retrofitting or expansion. That is one of the lowest hanging fruits we have now, because the smelter already exists.
Okay.
And we have received the necessary governmental approval to look for investment, and that will require, of course, the port lines being expanded and other technical expertise and other things coming in to make sure that Valco, which is now producing at a capacity of about 40,000 per annum, will be able to produce at least 200,000 metric tons of aluminium per annum. So that is an immediate investment that we are looking at. At least in the absence of the alumina, they can continue doing the exports, at least to increase their production to be able to meet local demand as well as the foreign demand. And also we are looking at the refinery, which is a very strategic investment, but quite capital intensive. And it's a strategic because, and if I may just be allowed to digress, when you have the raw bauxite today, it's trading between $40 to $45 per ton. If that same raw bauxite is converted to alumina, which is what the refinery plant is supposed to do, you trade it for a minimum $450 per ton. The average world cost of production of alumina ranges between 300 to 350 or 400. So even if you are able to just stop at the refinery level, you are making on average $100 on every ton of alumina, which is in itself about $60 to $70 more than what you would have gotten from the raw bauxite. Now, if you are able to progress further to the smelter and convert that alumina to aluminium, we are talking about minimum $2,000. The average world market cost of production for aluminium hovers around $1,100 to $1,300. And when I talk of cost of production, I'm talking about the cost of buying the raw material, the cost of personnel, the cost of technology, and everything that goes into generating the raw material. So clearly, when you take out the $1,500 or $1,600 cost of production, you still have about $500 more to save on your investment, which is in itself over 400% more than the amount you make from the sale of a ton of bauxite. And that is why we consider that the entire chain is crucial, and that we cannot pick phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3 as the most attractive or most crucial for you to invest in. But whichever angle that you invest in, GIADEC is positioned to ensure that there's a synergy, and whatever you need to make sure your business viable, you get it. So to answer the question, the mining is lucrative, the refinery is lucrative, smelter is lucrative, and it all depends on the vision, the objectives, and the internal projections of the investor and what it is they want to achieve. But we are open to accept any proposal that they bring, so long as it's beneficial to the country and will help us realize that vision.
So let me understand you. For the raw bauxite, Ghana gets $40 to $45 per ton export. When we convert it to alumina, it moves to between 300 to 350, or is it 400?
That's about 450.
450.
The 350 is the cost of production.
So $450 per ton. So it's almost times 10.
Yes.
And then when we get to final product, it's about 2,000.
Yes.
2,000. So the value addition makes sense. Yes. Yesterday, somebody said to me on this panel that between exploration, development, and production, it may take 15 years. All right. So even though we're very excited about the numbers, the length of time is very long. So I'm coming to you again. We are in 2025, okay? So let's assume you get somebody say, well, I want to set up a refinery in Ghana because you guys are already producing the ore. What is the realistic time frame from that person expressing their interest to the refinery actually working?
So, Bernard, estimatedly, having at least 1 million metric ton capacity refinery should, if you have all the funds available, you have the land, you have all the facilities needed, should not take you more than 3 years to build. Not more than 3 years to build. In fact, the recent data shows that Rusal, that's the Russian company, the Russian aluminum company, was able to build a refinery in China under 1 year. That is a 4 million metric ton capacity refinery under 1 year.
They built a refinery
in China under 1 year.
Hey.
So it all depends on how government's commitment and willingness to provide the necessary support for the investor to be able to move forward. Because in our conversations and engagements with investors, one of the key questions that I always ask is, what are your timelines for commencement and completion?
Okay.
Because it's very key. We are not ready to cede a contract to you, go to sleep and wait for you to spend 10, 15 years to have a refinery up and running. So it's very important to us, the timelines within which you want to work, and we will hold you to it.
Let me ask you a controversial question. Dr. Simantiao says something. We don't need to wait for somebody to come from America and bring us money. We have money from mining. If the thing is so lucrative, why don't we say, give me a percentage, 70% of our mining resources, let's invest it into this beautiful thing that Twumasi Ankrah is saying, so that the thing will belong to us, so that we don't need to say local content, we don't need to say whatever. You know, when they bring the money from some place, every time we are fighting. He's done, and he's speaking from authority because he was the head of, what's the name of that thing? Yeah, but yes, PIAC. So he knows where, he said the money is there. So why don't you just tell the president that they should give that money to you to build a refinery? We don't need somebody from, Canada to come and give us and be telling us all kinds of things. So every year, stability agreement, protest. We don't want all that. Let's use our own money to do our own thing. What do you think?
The money is there, but the money is not for us. Oh. And this is why I say so. We give concessions, and that is what GIADEC has tried to change within the few months that I have been there. Because we give concessions out. And when you give that concession to a private investor, you have an agreement with them. You have told them that all that you expect from them at the end of the day is your royalty and your taxes and other fiscal policies you have agreed to. And that is what they are supposed to give to you. Once they are meeting those obligations, it is not their responsibility to come and develop those other aspects of the industry for you. Yeah. So for us to be able to get to the point where Mr. Manteya's concern lies, we have to now lead the initiative. And that is why you notice that GIADEC somewhere in June decided that it will be proper for us to have a strategic lead on this initiative to secure control over all bauxite reserves, so that in the course of driving the industry agenda, you will not have investors who come, run to Minerals Commission and get a concession without GIADEC's involvement. Because we have a mandate to ensure that certain deliverables are achieved within certain period of time to maximize the gains of government. So the question, I agree with his concern, but the money as it stands now, based on all the concern, the mining ongoing right now, do not belong to the state.
No, maybe we didn't understand him, and I won't believe. Like, what I understand he was saying was that every year after everybody mines and they pay their taxes and royalties, all the money that we have, we use it on recurrent expenditure. We don't invest it. So he's saying that we can say, instead of giving the money to chiefs, with respect to me, giving the money to people to chop, let's put the money together and invest it in something that will benefit our future, instead of sharing the money to party food soldiers. You get it?
Bernard,
he's not talking about you. He's saying that from all our mining, we generate a lot of money, but we've not leveraged that money to do anything productive. We just use on recurrent expenditure. And you are looking for investors. He's saying that the money is here.
But Bernard, what that concern also fails to take into consideration, I agree, but what it fails to take into consideration is that government has pressing needs at every point in time. And don't forget that revenue generated from the resources is supposed to be used for the benefit of all Ghanaians.
But GIADEC is for all Ghanaians.
Yes, GIADEC is for all Ghanaians, and I'm saying the revenue generated, which is of course the royalty, which in some cases 5% of the gross or 6% based on negotiations that were entered into. And we don't even know the actual sum. Maybe he can help us with that. But that money also goes into servicing other responsibilities of government. Government actually relies on it to meet other obligations. So it has always been the position that government, as especially with GIADEC, for us to go into strategic partnerships, so that government is not supposed to commit all the funding, but at least leverage on whatever it has. And that is what I think we haven't done with the other reserves, to leverage on it instead of giving the concessions outright.
No problem. My last question. How optimistic are you that this thing will work? Because, you know, when the document is read, it looks conk. So Ghana, the problem is not the document too, it's the implementation. So I want you to be very honest with me. This GIADEC thing, and two in one, how optimistic are you it will work? And when do you think we can start seeing some results?
So Bernard, I am very optimistic that it will work. And my optimism is born out of the fact that there is a global demand for bauxite, for aluminium.
Okay.
And that once there's a strong political will to ensure that this dream, which was born somewhere in the 60s, is realized, that can be done. And as I speak, we have all the support from government to do whatever it is we need to do, ensure that we realize that dream. So at least on that score, I am very confident. We've also had investor engagements and received several proposals, had several conversations. Some of the investors have come back to us with what they can do, how they can do it, when they can do it. And we have received the requisite approval to set up a team to evaluate these proposals and select one person or one investor who is able to bring this into reality. So I am very confident that with the kind of proposals that we have received and the kind of commitment shown, that will come into reality.
We are praying for you and we are supporting you that it will work. Put your hands together for Twumasi Ankrah, who is the CEO of the GIADEC. Thank you very much, Twumasi. Great talking to you. And please take your seat. Would like to